Greetings, R. Frederick Riddle here, and this is Christian News and Views, episode number 35. We're moving right along here. Well, today is Friday's recap. So I'm going to take a look at the past week and just make some comments, kind of remind you what I've said, and I may add a thing or two as we go along. So on Monday, we start out by a subject that we were already familiar with, and that was the pardon of President Biden's son. And there was reaction on both the left and the right. Uh, so what I found the most interesting was the reaction on the left. They got upset. In fact, I pointed out that the left has been piling on President Biden for the pardon of his son. But I also pointed out, in fact, I went back and did a history on the presidential power of giving a pardon. It goes all the way back to President George Washington. He was not only the first president who had the power, but he was the first president to actually use the power. And that pardon that Biden did is within the bounds of the Constitution. It gives him that power. Now, was he right in doing it or not? That's another subject. You can debate that from now until kingdom come. But as far as legalities go, he's perfectly within his rights to do that. The real reason I think for the left being so upset with him is that it undercuts their opposition to Donald Trump. They want to be able to charge him with this crime and that crime, and they want to do different things. They want to make him look bad. And President Biden, kind of threw them under the bus, you might say, in that he, with his pardon, goes far beyond just the welfare of his son, but it impacts what the Democrats can say and do. Now, it's been interesting. I've even read letters to the editor by obvious liberals, left, and they're all piling on. They can't help themselves. They still criticize Trump, still repeat the same old lies, but now they add a new one, and this is something because Biden has betrayed them in their thinking, and so they get upset with him about it. This is going to blow over. It's a minor issue, but it does undercut what the Democrats can do. They recognize that and they're upset about it. They'll find something else. They always do. On Tuesday, President-elect Trump met with President Zelensky of the president of Ukraine. Now, I've followed presidential politics, man, since I was a teenager, I think. Um, Only other president that I remember having done anything during the status between the election and actually assuming office of actually doing something um, presidential. I'm not talking about selecting cabinet members. They all do that. And arranging there, and that takes up a lot of time. But the only other president that I recall doing something leading up to the inauguration, which impacted the presidency beyond selecting cabinet members and so forth, was Ronald Reagan. But there may have been others that did it as well. It may be more common than I think. I just don't remember any situation that came up. But here we have President-elect Trump meeting with the president of the Ukraine. And you know what the topic was. It had to be the invasion, the unjust, the uncalled for invasion by Russia into Ukraine, in spite of treaties that had been worked out in previous years, in which the Russians guaranteed the sovereignty of Ukraine and literally guaranteed the fact that they were not going to do any kind of invading. They invaded anyhow. And so this has been a political issue, and there's been people on the left and people on the right calling for different results and actions. And a lot of people on the right believe that President Trump is going to stop stop aiding the Ukraine. I'm not one of them. Um, it just doesn't make sense. People say, well, the president, that administration is corrupt. We don't have corruption here. Um, People say, uh, well, they don't like Christians. Well, I don't believe that's true. I've seen no evidence of it. The evidence that they bring up about it really centers around a particular church which is under Russian control. Um, and they are apparently ignoring Israel, which we are called upon by God Himself to defend. Israel has corruption within its government. Israel doesn't particularly care for Christians. They appreciate our prayers and the fact that we support them politically. But in Israel, you're not allowed to go out and preach the Word of God in a public arena, so to speak. They have restrictions. So, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for support for Israel. My point is, we need to, the same rules that apply to them should apply to any other country. If that country is under attack by Russia, then we should examine what our options are. If that country may have problems. They may not even have a democratic government. Our option is to do what's right or not do anything. And if we do what's right, and sometimes we have to do things which may cause us to hold our noses or something of this nature. Russia attacked Ukraine. It was uncalled for. Our government apparently knew something was coming up because they warned Ukraine just maybe hours before it actually took place. Um, so the idea that they shouldn't be getting any kind of support from us, I don't think there's much foundation for that. Secondly, we talk about all the weapons we can. These weapons, by the way, are not state of the art. For the most part, they are weapons that we have mothballed, weapons that we keep in storage, and we are taking them out of storage and sending them to the Ukraine. Now, with some things that we do, some of the some of the weapons we have are state of the art, or at least maybe not the latest, but they're still pretty well advanced. So, yes, we do support them then with that issue. By the way, my contention has been that President Biden has not really supported them. He talks about it. He says he gets authorization, but then he slow walks it over to the Ukraine. My opinion has been and still is that the powers that be in the administration do not really want Ukraine to win. They want a stalemate. There's a big difference between winning and a stalemate. If they get a stalemate, there's certain political results that will come out of that, and that's what they want. So, to me, this whole meeting that took place tells me that Trump and Zelensky get along. They got along when he was president the first time, when Trump was president the first time. They not only got along, they worked together on things. Zelensky is called the Trump of the Ukraine. He, you could say he copied, or he took some pointers from how Trump did things, because he's got the same problems. There's the deep state exists in Ukraine. It's a corrupt state, and it needs to be eradicated. He was in the process of doing that when Russia invaded. And so there's a lot of common ground between the two men. And I think, and I mentioned it in the Tuesday episode, and I've mentioned it even prior to that President Trump is preparing an offer that President Putin of Russia will not be able to refuse. Why? Well, for one thing, Putin's on slippery ground. Um, he could lose his position and his life, for that matter, with a single misstep. So he's under criticism now. He's under scrutiny now by the powers that be there in Russia. He holds the power himself, but there are others who are letting him have that power who could take it away from him. And some powers, some of them he can go after, some of them he don't dare go after. And so I think Trump, when he becomes president, is going to have a surprise. I call it the January surprise for Putin. And I think that, because remember, Donald Trump said he's going to try to get this war over with rather quickly. Now, he made the comment he's going to end it as in the first day of office. Well, he's going to set in motion those things right that first day, I'm sure. And it could happen real fast. When you get to the international politics, they can be slowed down to a crawl, or they can be at rocket speed. I think this is going to be at rocket speed. On Wednesday, I commented about a letter to the editor. Whether liberal or conservative, we have the responsibility to learn true facts and to shun falsehoods. We also need to follow our own advice when we give it to others. Don't just give it, follow it. In that letter, the person who gave that letter said that we need to, let's see, I think I have it. We need to learn the facts and then speak out about them. Well, that's good advice. It's always good advice to get the facts as opposed to rumors, falsehoods, and stuff of this nature. And it was interesting that the guy who said that, the very next thing he does is he starts repeating falsehoods that he had heard, and he didn't bother to check them out. And so he went on and basically repeated the falsehoods. He didn't follow his own advice. He didn't learn the facts first. It takes a little work to find out what the facts are, especially when you're dealing with Donald Trump, because you have not only are the Democrats opposed to Donald Trump, but you have the media, the newspapers, the news media. They are opposed, have been opposed for a while, and they they have their own agenda, and it happens to agree with the liberal agenda. And so they worked in consort with the liberals, with the left, and I've said this before, and some of this is by necessity. News media cannot report all the facts. They simply can't. There's too much facts out there to put into a 10, 15 minute, or even less, a time frame. So what they do is they cut and paste. A lot of it falls on the floor. But what they were doing is they took this normal practice and they would take a fact, something that Trump said or did over here, and he was talking about a particular issue. Then over here he was talking about a different issue, maybe in the same meeting, same people he's talking to, but he said something different or did something different as it applied to a different issue. And then what they did is they would take and cut these two out, move them over, and merge them together and come up with an altogether different statement. It's something the left is pretty good at doing. They don't always get caught at it, but in this case, they have been caught at it. And it's just unfortunate because we, by nature, our country draws much of its strength by having an informed public. And when our sources of information get corrupted, that means we get a corrupted version of the truth, and when we act on that corrupted version. Um, it's just the way things have gotten, and it's not just about Trump. It's about a lot of different issues. Whoever it was that dreamed up fact checking, creating these fact checkers, it was a disaster for the United States, because what's happened is what may have had good intentions, because it's always a good idea to check the facts, to make sure they are facts. Well, these outfits came along and created their outfits where they fact check things. Well, this has been stated. I don't know how well it's been proven, but it is based on a basic truth. If you want to know how something's going to go, follow the money. And they accept money from both sides, but I think most of their money comes from the liberal, the left side. And so it's very rare to find a fact checker that gives totally honest um, reports as to what the facts are. They they don't lie. I'm not saying they lie, but I am saying uh, they micromanaged. They are selective in what they choose to report on and what they choose to say. So it ends up being favoring one side over another. I think that you and I should be engaged on our own fact checking. That's the way I do it. I look at different resources that I trust, and you have to find out which ones are trustworthy. That that takes work. That takes time. But you need to do that. But then when you do get it, and you're going to give advice to somebody based on what you call the facts, it's always a good idea to follow those facts yourself. So the letter writer was right in his opening statement. We need to be out there finding out what the facts are, and we need to then take those facts and give our advice and then follow them ourselves. So uh, I've been in the position of mentoring people to give advice on different situations. And I have found that if I point a finger at somebody and say, you need to do this, or you're wrong in doing this, I got three fingers pointing right back at me. Now, I know that's an old cliche, but it's still true. When we're doing this, look at those three fingers, because we are probably guilty of the very thing we are accusing them of being guilty of. We should at least check it out, see if we are. And if we are, we should follow our own advice. If our advice is good enough for them, it's good enough for us as well. On Thursday, I normally do a study on the Bible, and particularly the King James. Today I took not today, actually that was yesterday. On Thursday I took a slightly different tray. I still looked at the Bible, and I still used the King James Version Bible and scriptures and everything, but I focused on the birth of Christ. We now celebrate a commercialized version of Christmas, and we buy gifts for people and give them and trade them and so forth. And I'm not going to criticize that too much. I think that giving gifts is a good idea. I think that celebrating the birth of Christ is a good idea. I think that having a little joy in our life is a good idea. Those are all good ideas. I think it's also a good idea to find out what the facts are. Here we go with those facts again. In Micah 5:2, we're told that Jesus will be born in Bethlehem. And that answers one of the questions that I referred to, why he was to be born in Bethlehem. Because the scripture said he will be. And so Micah 5:2 said that. I also explained why Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem. It wasn't because of Micah 5:2. Micah 5:2 was a prophecy that they would go. But the reason, the practical reason, the everyday reason, was that a pagan ruler um, Caesar Augustus, I believe it was, issued a decree, and that they had to go to their land of, every tribe had their, or a family had a city or a location. It may or may not have been where Joseph. I mentioned that Joseph was born there. I don't really know that to be a fact. His family came uh, going back. That's where his family came because he was a descendant of David. And so his family came from. Bethlehem's called the city of David, by the way. So that's where he traced his heritage to, was to Bethlehem. So he had to go, by law, he had to go to Bethlehem to pay his taxes. Uh, so uh, I tackled that particular situation as to why they went. Another reason for going to Bethlehem, which is not really talked about in the Bible as a reason, but within about 2 more weeks after the birth of Christ, Joseph had to go to Jerusalem to go to the Feast of the Tabernacles. And that's, Bethlehem's only about 6 miles from Jerusalem. So it worked out really good there as well. It was convenience for him. I also tackled the date of Jesus' birth. Now, we celebrate his birth on December 25th. But that is a pagan holiday, a pagan date. Even the Christmas tree and stuff like that come from the pagans. And some people won't celebrate Christmas because of that. And that's their right. But we should still celebrate the birth of Christ. So I hope those people who do that do celebrate it to help them. The date, most people, and I shouldn't say most people, a lot of people have settled on is in September. Actually, I believe it's September 11th. I don't know if that's correct or not, but the evidence points that way. The very fact that the shepherds were in the fields nearby points out that it was either spring, no, not spring, early summer, the beginning of summer, or it was fall, about the middle of fall. And because this is what's happening is that shepherds will take their sheep, and they have a rangeland where the home range it's called, and they go up the hills and up the mountains up to as high as they can go, I guess. And all along the way, if you study this Psalm 23, it actually covers that. And if you ever get the chance to get the book, A Shepherd Looks at the 23rd Psalm by Philip Keller, get it. You'll love it. But it takes them up and then back down. And different aspects will relate to that 23rd Psalm. Well, when they get back to the home range, now the shepherds are there watching. We know it couldn't be in winter because in wintertime, they would have been in some kind of a shelter to protect them from the wind, the cold, even the snow. And so this is true of all sheep, but especially the sheep in Bethlehem because they were the sheep used for the daily worship at the temple. And so that in itself suggests a fall time, not the summer. It could be the summer, but there's other scriptures and other things that I included in my book, The Truth About Christmas. I think it's called The Truth About Christmas Updated. And I might rewrite that one someday and expand on it some more. But the thing is that the September time is more logical than the earlier like summer or springtime. And so, but that's not it's something that we have to be absolutely concerned with. If you like to look and find out the facts about things like I do, well, hey, that's interesting. Look them up, find them out. But this brings up my last question. Finally, I answered the question, should we abandon celebrating the 25th of December? And my answer was absolutely not. The answer is no. The date of Jesus' birth is an interesting subject. I find it interesting. I find it informative. And I love it when I can take something like that and relate it to actual truths in the Bible. But it is only an interesting fact. Um, Christmas is a time when we celebrate, or we're supposed to, should be, celebrating the birth of Christ. And we should do so with an eye on the cross. And I will be continuing this next Thursday, and I may even do something before then, but next Thursday I will undoubtedly do something more about Christmas. So I will continue to look at. And so that is my recap. Now, one of the things that I really would like to invite you to do is if you find these episodes interesting, you enjoy it, you're always free to comment. I hope you do. But whether you do or not, I hope you will subscribe. Just down below here, there's the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. I have 2 podcasts on here. One is the one you're watching right now, Christian News and Views. The other one is if you are somebody who likes to write, you think you might want to write someday, or you just want to know a little bit about writing. It's called Becoming a Published Author is Fun. And it can be fun. And I share tips with you to help make your journey as an author easier. I have a course in which I teach called Basic Authors Training. That is becoming a published author is fun. Takes truths that I expand on and go much deeper on in the course, but you can use those things that are in that podcast right now. You can apply them, and you can learn how to be a better writer just by going there. But if you really want it, then I offer a course. This podcast and that podcast are free to you, but they are supported. They are the whole financial ability to produce this is brought about by TNR Independent Books. This is the business that my wife and I founded back in 2014. After she passed away in 2023, I expanded it to now where I offer this course. I also have a service called Ministry Publishing and another one similar to that called Fast Track. These are areas in which you, as a potential author, you can become a published author. I will take you, if you know nothing about writing, I will transform you into a published author. If you already know about how to write, but you I have not been able to, or to get published, I will still transform you into becoming a published author. And that is something that it is the sponsor of these podcasts. So I encourage you to check us out. And how do you do that? Simply go to trbookservices.com. That's where my website is. You can find out about me. You can find out about TNR Independent Books. You can find I have a bookstore there. You can look at the books. You can look, and you have the opportunity to check out the course or the publishing ministry or Fast Track, whatever you want. So that's it for this week. You have a great week, and I will see you in the next episode.